What did they actually start off with?
They started with The Running Man, which comes out in November. They brought Edgar Wright out, as well as Glenn Powell, Coleman Domingo, and Josh Brolin.
Yeah, which I don't know why. I didn't realize Josh Brolin was the villain of the film. I didn't know that. So they mentioned Running Man. I totally forgot about Running Man, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to lie, like, obviously it's being directed by Edgar Wright. I have a long history with Edgar Wright. I love Edgar Wright as a filmmaker. But this isn't exactly a film that's been high on my radar. It's a Running Man. It's Edgar Wright. I'm sure it's going to be good. It's got Glenn Powell. I really like Glenn Powell. But I don't know what you've been expecting from Running Man. Whatever it is, ignore it, because this was not what I was expecting to see. It looked really different from what I was expecting. It looked great. Like, capital G, great. I like it. Of course, they're out on stage before they show the footage, and they're like, this has got thrills and it's intensity. You've never seen action like this. I'm like, yeah. And then they played it. And I think all of us looked at each other when that thing ended, and we're like, oh my God. Anyway, what did you think about it?
Well, okay. What happened at this Comic-Con, what's happening and Running Man is part one or part two of that. The other is The Long Walk. And both The Long Walk and The Running Man were written by Stephen King under pseudonyms. And they were collected once in a 4-volume, the Bachman books. He wrote them as Richard Bachman. And I said this earlier, when I was in junior high school, The Long Walk was like a cult novel. And The Long Walk came out in 79, and The Running Man came out, I'm probably wrong about this, but I want to say 81 or 82. And of course, they made it into the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, but that had nothing to do with the book. The book was very much inspired by a movie called The 10th Victim, which very Austin Powers 60s movie set in the future where they have a thing called the Big Hunt.
By the way, lower your hand a little bit just so people can see your face.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah, while you're talking. There you go.
There you go. So the Hunger Games, the Running Man, how it works is it's a game show. It's a reality show where you have to survive a hunt where people come after you and try and kill you. And if you win, you get whatever you want, millions of dollars. And the Running Man that they adapted in the 80s was very much not the book. But
Right.
what Edgar Wright did a lot, like with The Long Walk that Francis Lawrence had done, both. It is crazy to me that these novels that were so important to me when I was a teenager are now in 2025.
Yeah, by the way, they made sure to mention, by the way, Edgar Wright's on stage and saying, by the way, guys, this book about a futuristic world and stuff like that was set in 2025.
Yeah.
And we're all like, oh my God.
But this looks very much faithful to the novel, because the novel was nothing like The Running Man with Schwarzenegger. So to have both of these things come out is wild to me in the same year.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that it was a marquee movie. When they first announced it, I thought it was just going to be one of those smaller movies that I didn't think it was going to be the first movie that they would come out and actually, talk about and do a big presentation.
Oh, and they spent some money on it.
This movie, the Arnold Schwarzenegger one, was my childhood. I never understood it. I was way too young. All I know is we always ran into the 3 booby lady. Right? That's the 3. This is or is that Total
That's
Recall?
Total Recall,
Total
dude.
Recall.
Okay, so never
Different
mind.
author.
So my
Different author. That's Philip K. Dick.
My thing was, my point is now void.
But it's still crazy to me to see both of these movies being given the A-list treatment. I mean, they're both great stories. And I think, they both deal with a future America that I never believed would exist.
Kind of exists.
We're there. We're there.
It looks like something that could be a new franchise, and it looks like it's gonna kind of capitalize on a younger audience, which is wild because there's such a strong following for the Hunger Games franchise from like the younger, even the Gen Zers. And I feel like this movie is gonna appeal to them, and then also appeal to an older generation that actually grew up with it or knows a lot about it. I didn't know anything about it, and I was like, wow.
And if you can, it's interesting because The 10th Victim, the movie that came out in the 60s, directed by Elio Petri, that stars Ursula Andress and Marcello Mastroianni, is kind of the same story. And it just got it's awesome. And it just got released on Blu-ray by Kino Lorber last week. Maybe to capitalize on this.
I just want to point out just the one shot that I really liked was right in the beginning, that person running and then the arrow just slammed.
Oh,
my
that was brutal.
Very gruesome.
That was like, hello, we're here.
Yeah, so
This is what it's
the thing starts off, there's this woman starts running, and this, you see a guy let an arrow loose, it cuts to her, and it's just such a visceral oomph. The arrow goes through her head and slams her against a tree.
Yeah.
It was
It was awesome.
brutal shot.
It was like a harpoon more.
But also some of the other cast in it. Like I saw, like all of a sudden William H. Macy
Oh yeah.
popped up
Oh,
in
yeah.
there, which we don't see enough of. Who were some of the other people?
Coleman Domingo plays like the Richard Dawson role.
Yes.
he's our
Perfect.
master of ceremony.
Yep, perfect. Josh
He's
Brolin, the
great.
villain. But who were some of the other? We saw a couple of other faces in there too that I'm trying to remember.
Ah.
I just remember William H. Macy because whenever William H. Macy pops up in something, I take notice. But yeah, man, it looked great. I was so shocked. And like to your point, it's kind of like a trend right now because this is going to be so unlike, like you said, the Schwarzenegger movie, because the Schwarzenegger movie is nothing like the book.
You know, it's an Arnold movie.
In the same time that we're getting a new Starship Troopers movie that Neil Blomkamp is doing, because it's going to be like the book, because the other Starship Troopers movie is actually nothing like the book.
100%.
So it's kind of like a new trend we're starting to see here
So
right now.
Wild.
So apparently Lee Pace is in there.
Lee Pace is in
Yeah,
there?
Lee Pace and Michael Cera is in it too.
Oh yeah, we did see Michael Cera in there. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
the guy who throws the.
That was the best moment of the really, really extended trailer that they showed
That was
us.
like a 5-6 minute.
Yeah,
thing they
like you
showed
see
it,
him with the squirt gun and
The
Oh, that
squirt
was
gun thing
dope.
was hilarious. I was sitting there pumping the squirt gun. It's like, yeah, just wait for it. That was really good. So again, this is one of my favorite things at CinemaCon is when a movie comes out and surprises me. And we've had a number of those this year at CinemaCon. And
Yeah.
Running Man was the next one to add to the list. Looks surprisingly better than I thought it could be. I really do think everybody's going to like this. This looked really good.
I think Paramount presented two movies that were the needle movers for me. So this was one of them for sure.